My name is Robert L. Satcher Jr., and I am a former astronaut and professor of musculoskeletal oncology at MD Anderson Cancer Center. And I'm the 2026 Kendall Awardee in Science, Engineering, and Technology. It's a tremendous honor being recognized by Morehouse for this award. I know following in the footsteps of a long list of luminaries who have been awarded this way. It's especially important to represent this area, science, engineering, and technology, which for African Americans, we've always been underrepresented in this area, even though we've had some very famous people and very impactful people. So great honor to be included in that list of people who have set the groundwork, I think, for a very positive future for science, engineering, and technology. And to be thought of in that same light is a tremendous honor. I hope that, when it's all said and done, and after I'm long gone, that it will have an impact on people looking forward, as I hope to have an impact on people nowadays also. The question is, how has my journey prepared me to be a leader in the industry? I think my journey is an unusual one. You kind of summarized it there. I started off thinking I was going to do engineering, so I went to MIT undergraduate, majored in chemical engineering, and went out and worked a few summers at DuPont and realized that chemical engineering, although very intellectually stimulating, didn't have enough people contact for me. So I pivoted at that point and decided to go to medical school, which turns out to be probably one of the most impactful decisions that I made, and wound up going to Harvard Medical School, but also continued to have an interest in doing biomedical research. So I also got a PhD in chemical engineering, but really it was in biomedical engineering at MIT. MIT just didn't have a biomedical engineering department at the time. And so that's my project, though, and my work was on studying the origins of cardiovascular disease. So I went from there and decided to do a residency in orthopedic surgery and ultimately to focus on cancer care from that interest in interacting with people. And from a surgical perspective, that interest just stemmed from within the subspecialty of orthopedic surgery. Orthopedic oncology just offered the most longitudinal types of interactions that I was really interested in. You become a doctor for your cancer patients for life, and you really are with them through this whole journey of cancer care. So that is what really got me interested there. And then, of course, this big pivot that I never anticipated, but also always dreamed about, which is going into space. I was a space fan from a very early age, and was kind of during the golden age, I would say, of Hollywood and their treatment of space. Saw some of the first African-American astronauts go to space, and that inspired me. And never thought, honestly, that I would get the opportunity to do it, but was blessed in many ways that way, with the opportunities kind of presenting themselves for me to meet astronauts. The first astronaut I met was Ron McNair when he came to speak at MIT. And then in years following that, I was doing my residency out in California, UCSF, and got involved with a research project at NASA Ames and met more astronauts that way, including a guy who I ultimately flew with. His name is Leland Melvin, and ultimately flew with him in space, but I met him for the first time out at NASA Ames. So, curiously enough, my career in orthopedic surgery kind of was very beneficial for me in being an astronaut. When I went there, I was the first orthopedic surgeon, the first cancer doctor ever to be selected as an astronaut. I think I'm still the only one. And we were doing construction work on my space flight, which was in 2009 on the International Space Station. And just the skills from surgery, and if you know anything about orthopedic surgery, it's very hands-on. It's not only the intricacies of knowing anatomy, etc., and being very precise that way, but also understanding human biomechanics, in that we're dealing with the musculoskeletal system and fixing it. And that kind of approach was very beneficial in terms of doing spacewalks and doing construction on the International Space Station. Our mission, of course, was towards the end of its construction. We did some things which were necessary for adding some of the final components, and it was a very exciting and interesting mission to be a part of. We wound up being successful in what we were doing, and so a very important part of my experience. And then I decided to go back to medical care and delivering medical care, since that is what I was trained to do. And my experience as an astronaut actually was very beneficial for me in going back into the operating room, just from a logistical point of view. So, and it's been very impactful. It's kind of opened up and given me the opportunity to speak to much broader audiences about both space and about cancer care. So I think the two have worked in ways that I didn't anticipate initially, and being really the only person to have this pathway so far, it was impossible for me to fully anticipate what sort of impact it would have, but I can say it has resulted in at least being able to talk to much broader audiences, to talk to a lot of young people about STEM, and the sciences and engineering, and how you can have these careers which allow you to be impactful in ways that you may not anticipate. And I hope that that is inspirational for folks, especially young African-American kids and African-American males who are drastically underrepresented. Wasn't always that way. Well, historically it was always that way, but we did have a period where there were more of us going into these fields. We're now kind of back in a period where there's not enough of us, and we really got to focus on getting more folks like ourselves into the field and interested, because our contributions throughout the years have been outstanding and very important. I look at my own example. I'm a indirect legacy, I would say. My uncle is David Satcher, and he was the recipient of the Camel Award back in 1998 after he became the 16th Surgeon General. And he was a big influence for me, advisor throughout the years. Our family was very close with him and his family. He, of course, had 4 kids, and those kids who are my cousins, we were very close and remain in touch, frequently. And I'm still, of course, am in close touch with Uncle David also. So his words of advice throughout the years were very helpful, because he's always been a leader in the field. And when I was going through this process of trying to figure out what to do and how to do it, especially since I was going into uncharted territories, I would say, he really gave me some words that I still remember to this day. He said, the sky's the limit whenever you're pursuing something which you're very passionate about. And ironically, of course, I like those words because I was looking at going into space, which the sky is literally the limit. So, but yeah, in terms of African Americans in STEM, long legacy of us, his generation especially. My father was a chemist and also became a president of a college, but had an academic career in chemistry, specifically radiation chemistry was his area of focus. And interestingly enough, that is an area which is important for us to take a look and to solve when we look ahead at what role technology is going to play in terms of space exploration. It's central to it. And one of the big challenges that are at the forefront of that right now is how to protect people and how to protect human performance in space. And we've solved a lot of the problems that are going to allow us to do deep exploration, but there still are a few remaining, like when you go and you leave the protective confines of Earth, there are more risks from radiation because you get the burst of radiation from the sun that you're going to be exposed to on the journey. The Earth's magnetic field actually protects us here from that radiation, but you're going to be exposed to that on a trip to, say, Mars. And so we've got to understand how to protect people when they're undertaking this kind of exploration. And so a lot of work in that area right now. At NASA and during NASA's recent history, the last few decades, and ever since space shuttle era, actually, there's been a substantial and significant African-American presence in the astronaut corps, also amongst the engineers and scientists who have contributed to the success of NASA. And we've got to continue that. And the only way to continue that, of course, is having African-Americans who are training college level. But the interest really begins earlier than that, in high school, junior high school, elementary school. So that message really has to be propagated to folks at that level. I know that Morehouse has had a long history of luminaries in science, mathematics specifically. And so it is really one of the institutions which has produced a lot of scientists and mathematicians. And certainly we expect that it will continue to do so. And it's, events like this which can contribute to that guarantee and really continuing to bring the best and the brightest to Morehouse, which is necessary given its really central role in all of this. So yeah, I think it's when I look at, I think your original question was, what's the significance of my presence in this field? I think it just adds to that legacy, and hopefully will help to guarantee that we can ensure in the future, just like we did in the last 20, 30 years, that there's a significant presence and impactful presence of African Americans in science, engineering, and technology. Being in space is extremely impactful in terms of changing the way that you think about how we interact with each other on the planet here. Because you look back and you see the Earth, and it really is like an island in the universe, if you like, in the universe and in the solar system. As in the backdrop, you see this infinity, which is space and the universe. And we don't know if there's any other intelligent life in all of that. If there is, it's vast distances away from us. And during my lifetime, we may never know if it exists. And it's one of the big challenges for us as a species, and I'm talking about the human race, to begin to explore the solar system. We haven't, and not to mention outside the solar system in the universe, but we've never been to any other planet. We've just been to the moon, which is in orbit here around the Earth. It's only 250,000 miles away. Mars is much further, 32 million miles. And we have to go about and get about this business of exploration. Our technology has finally gotten us to the point where we can do that. It's also one of the most precarious times in our existence, with all the instability politically and everything else, and with conflicts being exacerbated. So we got to thread the needle and survive ourselves, so that we can really get about doing this and seeing, is there anything else out there except for ourselves? So when you go into space, it really puts that in perspective for you. You know, you can kind of put yourself in the mindset of another intelligent entity coming and looking down on planet Earth and seeing what's here, which is a mess right now, right? You know, but seeing what's here and seeing how we tend to fight with each other over things which really aren't significant, but we just haven't figured out how to navigate that stuff without this kind of conflict. And we really need to do that. And yeah, it really brought it home for me when you're up there and you're up there with colleagues, and yeah, we come from all different races, backgrounds, etc. But when you're looking down, you realize just how insignificant those differences are. And, you know, you look back and you back into space and you realize, wow, you know, the only way we're going to really be able to take this on is if we work together and we get the best of each other brought to the table. And we don't know where those talents are going to come from. You know, it's, you never know who the next, genius is going to be, whether or not, and what they look like. You know, you have no idea. They're going to be African American, they're going to be Caucasian, they're going to be from some other, they're going to be Chinese, Indian, African, whatever, who knows? But we really need to take advantage of whoever that is in order to advance our cause. So I think that perspective gets brought home when you have the privilege of traveling into space. I certainly hope in the next few years, as we see commercial space industry and these other entities take off, that more people can go, and that will have an effect here on the ground in terms of helping us to navigate these differences that we're allowing to have to divide us, and I think to have too much impact in what we do. I want to express that it's a great honor, and I see it again as that just because I'm just in the company of all these other great honorees that you've had, and just being able to be recognized that way. It's a great honor for my family. I happen to be the second Satcher honored in this regard, and trying to raise my kids, and I can say this for the rest of their family too. So maybe one of them one day, I might be able to follow in the footsteps of myself and my uncle, and be a third honoree. So, but not to be too greedy or too selfish, I realize that there's others out there too who are very much deserving. I don't know how you pick who you pick, because I know that there's a lot of other people out there who have done fantastic things, and so it's I feel very lucky that way too to receive this recognition and to have been selected. So a big thank you. Thank you to the Morehouse family and the Morehouse community. And again, we look forward in the future to great things continuing to come from Morehouse, and certainly from the outstanding student body that you have there. They are, part of the hope that we have in terms of continuing to have outstanding African Americans in science, engineering, and technology.